settled and start the meeting with a call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I got some splaining to do. Last January, we elected Alex Yiannopoulos as our chairperson to take over after I had been chairman for several years. And Alex really brought a huge amount of energy and a lot of new notions and executed a lot of programs into the board. But Alex decided to advance his higher education, and unfortunately he is in school out of town and he had to resign. And at the last meeting before summer break in June of last year, Drew Baronato was elected as chair with the intention of electing a vice chair at this meeting. Unfortunately, Drew informed us over the summer that as a consequence of health issues, he would have to leave. So in the absence of any chairman at all, Maggie asked me to, Maggie Myers, for those of you who are new, who was our chairman of the Board of Commissioners and our liaison to the Board of Health, if I would take this meeting and take an election. And we discussed it and decided that it might be best to, with so many people gone and two brand new members, to wait until next session to elect. So regardless of when we elect, which will be next session, I need your cooperation. I am not really in this chair until I have an election to provide me with the role of interim or temporary chair. So I would ask if we can have a movement and a second and a quick vote.
I move to nominate David as temporary chair.
Thank you.
I second that.
Thank you. Do we have a vote of approval? Voice it, please, so that it's on the tape. Thanks.
Yes.
Yes.
Excellent.
Aye.
So with
Yes.
that, let me just quickly, so we won't have to do it next month. As required by state law, the board will need to elect, nominate, and vote for a chairperson and vice chairperson. When the meeting is called to order and following the Pledge of Allegiance, the current chairperson, which will still be me at the very beginning of next meeting, will ask for nominations for the chairperson. And that's why I think that we should, people should consider, are they interested? Who would they like? You can't have meetings outside of this because of sunshine law, but if you want to talk to people and ask their advice or opinions, you may do that on a one-on-one basis. Any board member can nominate any other board member or themselves, so you can nominate yourself for the position. If there are multiple nominees, votes are taken in order of the nomination until one of the nominees receives the majority of the votes of the Board of Health members present at the meeting. I need to get a confirmation. If there's only one, do we still need to do a vote? I think so, yeah. And then at that moment, the new board member who was elected will then take over the meeting and repeat the process for a vice chair position. So with that, I would like to quickly go to the, boy, I'm out of practice at this, to the review of the minutes. And Lisa was kind enough to include the minutes in our agenda. I've reviewed them. I don't find any issues. Anybody else who was here who has reviewed the minutes, does anybody have any comments? So if I could have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the minutes are approved. So I'd like to spend a significant time. We have introduction to new members and organizational issues. I'd like to spend some time introducing ourselves to each other, especially since 40% of the current attendees are new, and take some time to introduce who you are and what your expectations might be for the Board of Health and your role on the board. So I'm going to take the prerogative of the chairman and go last, but I think we should start with our new folks and just work our way across. So Chloe, do you want to go first?
I'm Chloe. I was a student intern last year, and I have the privilege to serve on the board as a real member now, so it's amazing. I guess what I'm most excited for is to maybe meet the new student interns and get to work with them.
So why don't you, for Lay mostly, what's your current role outside of the board? And
I'm a college student at Villanova University.
freshman?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, welcome aboard. It's great to have you. I want to add, Chloe did a fabulous job last year, and she gave an excellent presentation, and it's a thrill to significantly decrease the average age of the board with one new member. Thank you, Chloe.
Thank you.
Lay, please. And I'm sorry I've taken the prerogative of calling you Lay.
No, not at all. My name is Lee Ocker.
Dr. Ocker.
That's okay. I am a psychiatrist in private practice in Villanova. My background is in public health. I have an MPH and have always been interested in the policy end as soon as I was established clinically. I'm excited really about reviewing policies for the township, obviously a lot of the infectious disease and certainly mental health considerations, particularly post-COVID. And I've reviewed a lot of the minutes over the past several months and excited about a lot of the topics that have been on the table.
Wonderful. Welcome aboard.
So I'm Lisa Hamaker. I've been a member of the board, actually, I'm not even sure, 5 years, 6 years, maybe. I've lived in Radnor Township for 16 years. I have an older daughter who just graduated from Radnor High School and a younger daughter who's a student at Radnor High. And I work for Jefferson Einstein Montgomery as an endocrinologist with offices in King of Prussia and Collegeville.
Hello, my name is Seth Rubin. I'm a family medicine doc. I work for Mainline Health System, where I am the network medical director, and I am interested in serving on the Board of Health so that I can help to find ways that we can better the health and understanding about health for our community. And I was really excited in the work that we did over the last year with some of the outreach events that we did here in this room even to help educate the public and invite people in to be with us.
So my name is David Simmons. I was, in my work life, a diabetologist. I was at the University of Pennsylvania for nearly 20 years and then went into industry right at the turn of the millennium and had another 16-year career, fortunately for myself, in the field of diabetes in industry, and retired at the end of 2016 and joined the board in November of 17 and was elected chair at the January election of 21, I think it was, and served again until the beginning of last year. And I want to take a minute there to go over kind of the history of the board. When I first joined, the board actually had significant executive responsibilities in Radnor because Delaware County, as a consequence of age-old policies, did not have a Department of Health. So we had a health officer here in the township who was responsible for the township food safety inspections, and I forget what all else because fortunately, well, go over some other history. Pandemic hit. And for those of you who weren't aware, all federal assistance rolled through the state and all state assistance rolled through the county. In the absence of a county Department of Health, that was somewhat problematic, and that was the era in which I took over as chair. We muddled through that, but in the interim, we now have a Department of Health in Delaware County. Our Food safety inspections are now administered by that department. There are a lot of activities that department has taken on that we should have had for a long time, and they're now coming up to speed. So at this point, and Maggie, please correct me if I say anything wrong, but the Board of Health is a volunteer organization of people with interest and experience in the field of health that serves at the will of the Board of Commissioners and as an advisory to the Board of Commissioners. And we've done some, I'd like to think, some good work for them. As I say, helping to navigate through the pandemic. We've had issues of a wide variety, including mold outbreaks at Villanova University, issues with outdoor air pollution issues, with the publicly unpopular establishment of a store on Lancaster Avenue within spitting distance of churches and schools selling products that were unregulated and with unknown and potential hazardous effects. And last year when Alex came in, we did, as Seth, move into an area where we had only kind of partially gone before in terms of providing programs, of informative programs of public health. So we kind of can mold this how we wish to take it, and it's our energy and our imagination that will move in that direction. However, there has been one constant. What a great transition this is. There has been one constant in that, and that has been the student intern program, of which Chloe is a graduate, and to which we can point year on year as having successful execution of bringing a couple of kids from Radnor Township into the board as attendees and who develop programs and give presentation at the end of the year. And I raise that now because I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, but Lisa Duman-Hamaker had worked with Alex for several years. When Alex became chair, Lisa Bannister had helped join with Lisa in executing the program and mentoring the interns. But now Lisa Bannister has left, and Lisa is on her own. So I think that with that, I'll turn it over to Lisa and let her update us on the student intern program.
I do not have much to update on because Lisa's news came pretty recent. And to be honest, I had not been very involved with selection of interns or anything so far this year because having done the program for, I think, 4 years, this year I was kind of backing off. So I do know that requests for applications had gone out, and I know applications had been received. So I'll be playing, I guess, a little bit of catch up on where we stand right now with the program. The projects that were anticipated am I correct in remembering that Kiki was doing one?
I think so, yes.
Yes, with Lisa, or were they separate?
I think with Lisa.
With Lisa. Okay, so I guess question is whether she's still okay with doing that if it's just her.
Can't answer in Lisa's absence.
Right, exactly. So,
In Kiki's absence.
yeah, so we'll be doing a little bit of inquiring.
So how would you like to proceed? I think we pretty much need to defer. Will you reach out to Kiki and start moving it forward?
Yes, I will.
An idea comes to mind. So I would just say that we also will, I think we will need, maybe just you and Kiki can do it. If not, we're going to need to recruit help from other members. And so, again, offline between now and the next meeting, maybe we can do some communicating and figure out how to fill in the gaps and get that rolling again. Anything else? I seem to be doing a lot of talking. The next agenda item is for me, and I have since pandemic, because I became a little bit of a COVID literature junkie, being a retired physician who had a lot of access to the medical literature and really kind of obsessively read everything I could find on it. But I've been doing community infectious diseases follow-ups and updates since. And I really think I should, again, a little bit of history. There was a bit of a kerfuffle at the end of last year because at one of our public comments, a couple of people came on with a very strong anti-vax agenda. So I want to make some comments both about public comment and about our role. I think we need to act as scientific and technical and medical advisors to the board, and therefore we have to rigorously adhere to the principles of science, which is you use the best data available to come up with a model. Sometimes it's an opinion, sometimes it's a hypothesis, sometimes it's a theory, sometimes it's a law, but you do the best based on the information that you have. For the most part, politics has no role should have no role in the technical opinions rendered. The politics, I think, belongs to Maggie and the Board of Commissioners and up from there. Unfortunately, so many issues as a consequence of the incredibly fraught nature of the first couple of years of the pandemic, so many issues are sort of wed to political positions that you can't help but step into politics. And in those circumstances, I sometimes feel it is necessary to kind of provide the background for assertions that are made. So in that regard, I do not hesitate to advise vaccination when I think vaccination is appropriate. I do not want to be quoted as saying that all vaccines are safe and effective for all people, rather that vaccines are like any other medical intervention. They're tested in certain circumstances. Those circumstances take into account what is the risk population, what are the risks, what are the benefits, and then they're tested thoroughly, probably even more thoroughly than most drugs out there, in that both the CDC and the FDA need to sign off on vaccine policies. And there are many vaccines have incredibly large databases, and one vaccine in particular that has been one of the most controversial is probably one of the most deeply studied of all infectious disease interventions. That's the measles vaccine. We talked about that in detail in several occasions last year, and there is more highly vetted information in the medical literature about the value of the measles vaccine, both to the individual and to the community. And the value to the community is being played out again as there are widespread measles outbreaks in pretty much in most of the world that evaluates these things, as vaccination rates have dropped well below the 95% rate that's needed. I don't really want to talk too much more about measles, but just to raise that before I go into the infectious diseases update. So first, to get a couple of things out of the way, I don't really have much to say. We're coming to the end of the arthropod-borne disease high risk, and there have been a lot of those diseases that have gotten a lot of public play, but truthfully, there have been no substantial large outbreaks, but a couple of alarming individual cases. And the public health issue is to avoid mosquito bites and avoid tick bites. And I really don't have too much more to say about that for right now. And if there's anybody else that has something they want to say, please jump in. And if not, from there, I'd like to talk about influenza. We're coming into flu season. We're seeing in the influenza A's, we're seeing H1N1 and H3N2. Unfortunately, this year's formulation includes both H1N1 and H3N2. My opinion has always been that the ideal day in this part of the world to get your flu vaccine, and I endorse it for everybody who's not allergic or has not had previous reactions, the ideal day from my point of view is October 15th, the desire being to catch the early peak, but not be too far out when you start to wane in your protection to miss any late peaks that might occur. And that's always mitigated. If there is evidence of an early outbreak, get it earlier. As soon as you hear about it, get it. There is, as of now, no evidence of an uptick in influenza, either nationally or locally. And so, again, my target date is October 15th. But and when you're as old as I am, you get the double dose. Maybe it lasts longer. There is another form of influenza out there that is getting a lot of attention. That's the avian flu, which is H5N1. And just for clarification, as of right now, all human cases of H5N1 are acquired from animals, and nearly all of them are acquired through ocular infection from cows and people that work in the dairy industry. The reason, from a scientific point of view, that it is important is that cows have in their mammary glands the capacity to provide an environment where a mutation could occur that would allow H5N1 to cause human-to-human spread, and that has the potential to be a catastrophic epidemic or even pandemic event. I don't think that we are watching as carefully as we could, and we being not us, but the health authorities. There is a high tension between the dairy industry and the health authorities, but for right now, there is no fear for individual human-to-human transmission, and there is no threat to our milk supply or our meat supply. Mpox got an awful lot of attention. If you don't travel to Africa or have close personal contact with people who do travel to Africa, Mpox really is not a topic that I think we need to take up. I've also taken to reviewing the Pennsylvania Health Alert notifications, PA-HAN. If you want to do it yourself, it's easy to find online. There's one that I think is of interest, and that is that pertussis was occurring. It's not epidemic, it's sporadic, but it was occurring it usually is a disease of very young children, and it was occurring in high school age children, which is certainly a route for exit into the general community. And it is one where exposure of vulnerable people can be catastrophic, and there are post-exposure prophylaxes. So if you are having a cough for greater than 2 weeks or exposed to somebody who has a persistent cough, you should definitely contact your physician, because there are things that can be done. And just remember that persistent cough is also the hallmark of RSV, which has gotten a lot of attention, especially with the advent of a newly approved vaccine. And I don't really have any more comments on who should or shouldn't get that vaccine. And I think that's a personal conversation with your healthcare provider. Let me take a breath. And does anybody else want to weigh in on any of those topics?
I have one quick comment, and that's if you are a provider for an infant or small child, that RSV and pertussis, getting a re-up of both is now recommended. So,
Excellent, thank you.
as a new grandmother, I'm allowed to say that kind of thing.
Oh, should we call you Granny Maggie? Thank you, Maggie. So now to the topic that was the initiation of these community infectious disease updates, and that is COVID. And even since last June, but certainly over the last year, there has been a pretty substantial transition of COVID, which was to be expected. It has gone from a pandemic to an endemicized infection, and it's a pretty helter-skelter environment right now. There has been another substantial peak of COVID infections the problem is that nobody's testing and fewer are reporting. so that the markers that you have for following it are a little bit problematic. The only real marker that we have that is consistent and longitudinal for infection is wastewater surveillance. And the wastewater started to show up in the early part of the summer and spread across the country, and there was significant increase in wastewater. The problem is it's not quantitative. It doesn't really give you any numbers. It doesn't give you any specific individuals. It just tells you who within a given area, not who, how much within a given area viral shedding there has been. And there's not a great correlation because some of the later variants of COVID are affecting GI tract more than the earlier variants, and as a consequence, the amount of shedding an individual might do probably has increased exponentially. So we don't really know what a given value is. We just can use it as a longitudinal marker. But against a pretty substantial increase in wastewater, there were also increases in hospitalization rates and in test positivity and in ER visits, but against earlier peaks. The last peak that we can look at was actually over December, January of 23, 24. Although there were substantial increases in hospitalizations and deaths and in ER visits and in ER positivity, compared to earlier peaks, those were all low in comparison with what we would guess would be the amount of infection in the community, which goes along with what, just as a pure theoretical physicist, you would expect in a virus. A virus that kills everybody, that is highly mortal, doesn't really spread that well. So the Michael Crichton end of doom scenario is that would have to occur the way COVID did, a novel virus entering a naive community and wiping everybody out. But fortunately, some interventions were made and we weren't all wiped out. And then what happens is, as the virus gets more infectious, the more infectious variants that are not fatal, but rather give you a cough or make you sneeze or cause maybe even shift from aerosolized to fomites that can get spread around but doesn't kill people, they take over. So that even if another variant comes along that's highly mortal or morbid, it doesn't compete. And that's what we see happening. So that now, 4 years later, it is kind of a flu in that the mortality seems to be concentrated in those under 12 years old and those over 65 years old, and those who have specific increased risk factors. And it is hard, again, to be quantitative, but it appears to have virulence not dissimilar to, but in the order of a fold more than a bad flu year. So it's still a really nasty bug for those who are susceptible. And the problem is that everybody in the middle, it is now a flu-like illness. There's almost a hostility to testing. And I would just say, from a public health point of view, if you are a young and healthy individual who gets it, but you have contact with your children, nieces, or nephews, parents or grandparents who are susceptible, and you don't test, you run the risk of doing them significant harm. So I think that it is hard to give general advice on inoculation. It has become a personal decision. The couple of pieces of advice I have are that it has been proven by the last two peaks. The most recent peak before this peak was a December-January peak. This was an August-September peak. It's not a seasonal disease. And as a consequence, the seasonalization of vaccination doesn't make sense. There's really needs to be an individualization of vaccination. I'm also a great believer that if you're going to get vaccinated, I don't like to get vaccinated with two things at once because, A, I'm concerned that any reaction I have will be amplified. No evidence for that. absolutely personal opinion, but I also believe that if you're going to have a significant reaction to a vaccine, it's a whole lot easier to figure it out if you've gotten one vaccine than two. Personal opinion. But I can tell you with certainty that the seasonalization of this vaccine is not a great idea. And if you are about to travel into an area of high activity, you may want to get your vaccine to cover that. They are allowing for vaccinations up to every 4 months, and the new vaccines to cover the newest variants as measured by induction of neutralizing antibodies. Last thing I want to say about that is we do have another epidemic related to COVID, and that is the epidemic of long COVID, which is a long discussion. I have personal experience. It is a bear. It is an absolute bear. So this is not really a benign virus, and there are probably significant differences from influenza, although we're really not sure. There have been syndromes around for a long time that now in retrospect probably represent long syndromes from undetected viral infections, and hopefully we'll take the opportunity. And one of those areas does involve significant psychiatric issues, anxiety and depression that associates with the incapacitation that has occurred in a lot of people. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to the crowd again, and anybody who has any additional comments, I'd welcome them.
Probably speaking about something that I don't know, but I believe that there is a push right now to get free COVID testing available again, because I think that's a big thing is a lot of people's tests from before have expired or they've used them, and having to go out and pay $10 for one at the pharmacy or make a doctor appointment to go and get tested, I think is preventing a lot of people from testing when they should. So I think there is a push to have free COVID testing over the winter months, but just something to be aware of and maybe be suggesting.
Thanks, Lisa. That's great. I think it is absolutely a barrier, but I don't think it's the only barrier. Anecdote: a family member developed an acute illness. And I suggested they test, and they looked at me like as if I had two heads and I was growing a third. So I think that there are other barriers. And I'm still at the microphone. I'm doing a lot of talking for a temporary chair. Some old business. One of the things that I was proud of in my terms was that I had worked hard to strengthen the relationship between the school district and the Board of Health. We have a strong relationship to the Board of Commissioners, but the school district is independent and elected separately. And I would have to say that that's probably one of the greatest focuses of public health in the township. So we have had a representative who has been a great asset, keeping us informed in what's going on in the school district. But they've reorganized. It was P.T. Kevgas, who had been formerly the principal, but she is no longer going to be our representative. Before her, Jenny Lesage was the representative, and she will temporarily join again. There is some reorganization going on there. I don't have any other old business topics to bring up now. Does anybody else have any old business? Back to the elections. When we elect in October, will the elected officials, will we have to have an election again in January? I'm guessing yes. Okay, great. Just an add-on there. So Maggie, do you have an update for us from the Board of Commissioners?
Sure. I'll take over the talking for just a minute. I actually don't have much to say, but I'll give you a little breather. We haven't had a whole lot of public health-oriented issues over the summer, which is always a good thing. But we have some more global things that edge in on the side. So one, climate change. The Township building and the Township Public Works building have a plan out for design for solar panels. Public Works will provide more than is needed for the building. The Township building will not. I guess the square footage of the solar panels aren't enough to cover I think a lot of power is used by the police department. They have to have uninterruptible power. There are a lot of funny little things about them being in this building that I think increase our power usage. But either way, you'll see as soon as the plans come back, that'll go out to bid, and that'll be a great thing. So we can take some of that extra Public Works electricity and ship it over here, or at least get credit for it. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the EAC has been doing some informational educational lectures, as we were doing as well. And they did one last Tuesday, though I haven't seen it yet. I don't know if you saw it, on microplastics in the water supply and PFAS, which I think will probably be worth a look when I get a moment to look at that, because it's a big topic and it's a scary topic. And I remember Alex Yiannopoulos speaking to us about it last year and talking about reverse osmosis filtration and several other issues as to how you can get it out of your personal drinking water. But the overall look at how we as a society use plastics, I think needs to, I mean, it's not a Board of Health issue, but I think it needs to be taken on by somebody. And that's all I have to say, unless you're interested in bridge strikes, in which case the King of Prussia bridge strike deterrent system has been changed out for a heavier duty system. It went up on Valentine's Day. There have been 2 bridge strikes since then, but neither, well, we were getting one a month before that, but none since the new heftier system has gone up. What was happening is they're plastic chains for a reason, so they don't pull over the whole arm that gets struck by the truck. But the new system doesn't have that as an issue, and it'll be a lot less work over the long run for Public Works, who is having to go out there. Uncounted numbers of trucks stopped that didn't strike. The police only heard about a few, but there were double digits. And I personally, going up and down King of Prussia Road where I live, have seen multiple trucks pulled over after the bridge strike deterrent and before the bridge.
Well, in addition to the improvement in the detector, there's also a big flashing yellow sign at the detector. So
there's a big flashing yellow sign. There are at least 5 or 6 signs that say 10 feet, 10 inches. But
so you're either not paying attention or you're impaired if you strike now.
yeah. And we did check. There had been some concern that one of the truck drivers' GPS programs actually didn't have a low bridge there. That's either been fixed or it wasn't true. I didn't actually do that myself, so I'm not sure. But somebody's now looked into that, and that isn't, because that was, people were pointing fingers at that system, saying that truck drivers are led to go on. Yeah, we're told to go on King of Prussia Road. So anyway, those are my very peripheral to public health things that have happened over the summer.
So back to the water issue that you raised, we had gone to bottled water because of the fear of water supply, and of course the bottles were all plastic. And not only is there risk, but there's also the production of a huge amount of used plastic, which always bothered me. So we've gone to filtering. There are all kinds. You can install inline filtering. There are. We just use a canister, and we fill it with tap water, and it does both a reverse osmosis and a carbon filter. The water tastes better, so I highly encourage. But for those of you who don't believe in climate change and don't believe in the potential toxicity of forever chemicals and microparticles, I would ask for an explanation why there has been an alarming, and I mean alarming, increase in the incidence of a wide array of cancers in young people. Just a comment. So With that, I'm going to move along unless there's other comments. We do not have a school board update. I'm not aware of any other new business at the moment. We got plenty of new business to deal with. And that brings us to public participation.
I have pseudo gout, and it's attacked the top of my foot. Sarah Pilling, 29 Garrett Avenue. Before I make my comment, for your two new members, when you're talking to David, that's wonderful, but your voice is not coming through the microphones. So I would suggest that you don't look at David or the chair, but look into the microphones. I feel like a broken record, but here I am again. It's called climate change and heat. So the Paris Accord, apparently we are going to meet and exceed the upper limit set by the Paris Accord. This is worldwide. It's going to be higher than 1.5 degrees centigrade. It was hot this summer. It was not the hottest. I'm a crazy person who keeps attached to this. We had 23 days in July where it was 90 degrees or higher, and the air quality was not good. The night temperature was where we saved, so to speak, in that in 2022, the night temperature rarely went below 85. And as a person who has resisted air conditioning, because I'm just old enough that why should you have to do this? It was deadly. I was really sick. I don't doubt about it. My son this summer says to me, "Mother, when you're dead, we're going to want to sell the house, and you have no air conditioning." So I broke down and spent considerable savings to put in a heat pump for heat and cooling, and mini splits in 3 bedrooms because my house is funky and old and there's no ductwork in it. I do have solar panels, and my electric bill for August with the heat pump and the mini split was $10.32. And the $10 is just PECO's charge. So it doesn't pay. I just want to bring it up again because not everybody in Radnor can afford air conditioning. And I think we just need to remember that. The assumption that everybody will have air conditioning, it just does not follow. And I would push to Maggie that the heat is such that automobiles are going to over 120 degrees in 15 minutes when they're parked in the sun. We need to give further thought to putting solar panel canopies on parking lots for the automobiles. So I will be back again to bring it up because it's really important. It's really important because in addition to the 20-some days in July with 90 degrees or over, we had practically no rain. And we were in real trouble. So thank you.
Do we have any information about, I know that during the summer, actually I think the sign's still up on the door of availability during the day, obviously not nights or weekends. Do we have any info on how many people take advantage of that?
When I checked midsummer, and I'll need to check in again, it wasn't being used.
Okay.
Now, the fact that it's not open at night doesn't mean you couldn't call and come here if you needed to. The police would be happy to respond, pick you up, bring you here as needed. You know, as Sarah's saying, this can make you really sick. But it, unfortunately, fortunately, I guess, is not being used, which is fine. It's here, and it will remain here. I think there is some thought, and I know that we've discussed it in the past, if you could spread out, not just have one central cooling station, but have several around that might be easier for people to get to. That might be helpful. So we're thinking about things like that. But.
Just thinking ahead maybe to next summer, maybe having more public, announcement, like maybe the senior centers. I'm just thinking like certain areas of maybe, I mean, maybe
Places that
that's
are
already
already
been
air
done.
conditioned, right.
Right. But they may have, friends or relatives that.
The senior
just kinda
center did a
spreading.
nice job of distributing fans that are actually given to them by the county. So not an air conditioner, but helpful.
So as Sarah pointed out, this is not going away. And Sarah made a lot of really good points, including if the sun's going to burn us, we might as well use the energy of the sun to protect ourselves. There's one additional piece. So no longer is just the number of days above a given temperature a valid measure. I actually found that the heat waves this year were worse because we probably should stop counting days, not stop counting days over 90, start counting days over 95. And I thought the humidity was dramatically worse in those prolonged, and the drought makes it worse. So it's not just the temperature, and there is something that is very little reported, and I've dealt with this in my own personal health. The comment about how hot your cars are getting, there is no doubt in my mind, this is anecdotal, I don't have the data for it, there is no doubt in my mind the sun is more harsh than it was 40 years ago when I was a youth. It just glares. And I think one way to measure that is how quickly does your car heat up at a given outside temperature, how quickly does your car heat up? And I know, I'm an avid gardener, I know the difference between working in the sun and working in the shade has just accentuated. So I think that this is an ongoing, continuous process. I'm thrilled to hear about efforts from the township. I do go back to an anecdote of mine that I insisted on having my 70th birthday dinner in Paris, and we were staying in a hotel in the middle of the city, and it was cool enough actually when we were there. It was summer, June, that we could sleep with the windows open, and we could actually sleep because the city of Paris went to all electric buses. And you did not have the constant noise of diesel acceleration. For not commenting on the benefit for pollution, but noise. And I think that light pollution and noise pollution are two of the topics that we're going to hear more and more about as Radnor Township builds up, as we're building these houses right to the edge of properties, as 9 houses are built on a property where there used to be 3, as everybody wants airport runway kind of outside lighting, as everybody's having people blow with the loudest blowers that they can find, that both light pollution and air pollution are going to become public health topics for us. Any other comments? Well, with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion to adjourn.
A second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
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 The meeting is adjourned.